Today I'm going to talk about marketing mix modeling. So just before we begin, I'll just do a quick show of hands. Has anyone in here ever done any marketing mix modeling? Okay, so we've got a couple of people here. Does anyone in here who knows what marketing mix modeling is? Okay, all right, so that's a good place to start because this presentation I'm going to take you through is going to explain what marketing mix modeling is, what the inputs that you need to build a model, and what the outputs are then. And then towards the end, we're going to have a bit of fun, and I'm going to show you a case study with a well-known brand and how Taylor Swift influenced that well-known brand. Okay, so, and then I'm going to leave some time at the end for questions. So hopefully we'll have about 5 to 10 minutes at the end for some questions as well. So first, a bit of context as to who Kochava are. So Kochava was founded in 2011. Essentially, our core business is attribution, so last touch attribution. So if you haven't heard of us, but you may have heard of some of our competitors like AppsFlyer and Adjust and so on, we have over 1,000 clients. Globally, there's about 250 employees. And my role at Kochava is the general manager for the AIM product, which is a next generation marketing mix modeling product. And just a little bit more context, in 2022, Kochava acquired my business. Okay, so I had a business called Machine Advertising, which is based in London. Kochava acquired my business, and now me and my team work at Kochava. So let's get into the bulk of the subject here. We are going to cover what is marketing mix modeling. So I'm going to give you a clear understanding and definition of what MMM is and what it means for marketeers. I'm going to show you how to get started with marketing mix modeling, so the inputs that you need to build a model, and then of course what you should expect to get from that model. So this would be the output that you get from the model and the type of performance that you can expect to see as well. So firstly, the sort of main question that we always get asked, the most frequently asked question, is what is marketing mix modeling? It's a very valid question. It's a very important one because marketing mix modeling, to understand it, is critical to be a marketeer in today's world. And the reason why it's so important to understand it is because it's, how can I explain this? If you define marketing mix modeling, it simply is a way to measure your marketing outcomes. So it sounds very similar to other methodologies. You know, we're at the App Promotion Summit, so I'm assuming most of you use last touch attribution and MMP. So it can sound very familiar. It can sound very similar to what an MMP does. They both quantify your results of your marketing mix modeling. So a very high-level definition of marketing mix modeling is that it's an advanced methodology that analyzes the correlation between your marketing efforts, external factors, and the results of your conversions or your sales. Okay, so that sounds very similar to last touch attribution. So the real question is not what is marketing mix modeling, is what's the difference between marketing mix modeling and last touch attribution. So if you really understand that, then you can start to understand what marketing mix modeling is. So last touch attribution, the definition for it is that it's a simple method of assigning full credit to the final touch point before the consumer converts. Okay, so one of them is advanced, marketing mix modeling. One of them is simple. It doesn't mean that last touch attribution is wrong or bad. It's just fundamentally simple. It simply measures the last touch point where the user was before they converted. Marketing mix modeling measures the influence of your marketing on that conversion. So I'm going to give you a couple of analogies now to help understand this a bit further. So the analogy that I like to use the most, and There's probably a few people in this room that have seen this a few times, but it's a movie theatre analogy. Every time you go to a movie theatre to see the latest film, there's always a poster for the film that you're about to see next to the door of the screen that you're about to go into. Now, in last touch attribution world, 100% of the credit would go to that movie theatre poster, when in reality, what actually influenced you to go and see that film was a marketing mix. So it was a mix of display advertising, social, TV, PR, so on and so forth. These things have actually influenced you to buy that ticket and go to the cinema or the movie theatre and see that film. Marketing mix modeling is able to measure the impact of each one of these different marketing channels on that end sale. It's also able to measure the impact of what we call external events on those sales as well. So external events can be a number of different things, but typically most businesses are impacted by things like seasonality, by weather, by pop concerts, sporting events, and so on and so forth. It is different for every brand, but most of them are affected by this. So it gives you a different perspective on what's really driving your sale. So let's bring this back to a domain that we're all a bit more familiar with, which is promoting apps, marketing apps. So let's just say, for example, I was watching TV one night and I got the urge to download the new Nike shopping app. My user journey is pretty straightforward. I open up my phone, go to the App Store, type into the search bar Nike, and I click on the first thing, which is the thing that I want. In the last touch attribution world, 100% of the credit goes to Apple search ads, okay? But in reality, the Nike performance marketing team maybe had a media mix which looks something like this. And their last touch attribution is giving them the feedback which looks very familiar. This is obviously mocked up data, but this is something that we see every day. So a lot of the credit is going to Apple search ads, a lot of the credit is going to Google. Effectively, Apple search ads has become the movie theatre poster in this scenario. MMM would give the marketeer a read that looks something more like this. Again, this is just mocked up data, and I'm not just sort of, putting the boot into Apple search ads here, but it's something that we see quite familiar. Apple search ads is the last touch point. That is correct, but they are not the influencing factor on why that user went to the Apple search ads and search for Nike. You can see at the top there, we've also got out of home, TV. So MMM can measure offline media as well. So it can measure your top of the funnel on the bottom of the funnel sales that you get. Okay, so what can you do with this information as a marketeer? So all of a sudden, you start to get an enriched data set, and it means that you can start to pull and push levers that maybe you didn't have before. You can see that maybe Apple search ads or Google weren't as influential on your bottom of the funnel sales as originally thought, and actually Facebook and TikTok in this example here have a bit more influence. So you can start to shift your budget into those channels where there's more influence on the actual sales outcomes. I'm going to give you one more analogy, and then I promise that's it for analogies after that point. If you ask anyone what happened to the Titanic, the number one question you would get is that it hit an iceberg, which is correct. That's factually correct. It literally was the last touch point. Okay, but there are lots of other influential factors that why the Titanic hit the iceberg. The first one is that it was going too fast, okay? It was going too fast because it was trying to break the transatlantic speed record. At the time, it was a very competitive market. They were trying to prove that the Titanic, the biggest ship in the world, was also the fastest ship in the world. It was trying to break records because the leadership team of the Titanic was putting pressure onto the captain. The captain was relatively inexperienced. He was an experienced captain, but no one had ever captained a ship as large as the Titanic. So they ignored multiple warning signs around the different, that there was lots of icebergs in the area, And the reason why they ignored those is because they had overconfidence in the technology of the Titanic. They thought it was indestructible. They thought it was unsinkable. So there were multiple influences that actually meant that it hit the iceberg. Okay, so think about that in terms of if you're sort of investigating why the Titanic actually crashed, it would be negligent to ignore all of those other influences and only concentrate on the fact that it hit the iceberg. Okay, so next part, how do you build a model? Okay, it's pretty straightforward. There are 4 core elements to building a MMM model. So the first one are your events. So these are your conversion events. Whatever your conversion funnel looks like, whether that be an install, a first purchase, a registration event, revenue event, and so on and so forth. It's whatever business model that your app works to, whether it be monetization, whether it be in app purchases, subscriptions, and so on and so forth. We model each one of those events, and they work together in what we call an ensemble model. The next is your media. So what's the media that you're buying? So whether that be digital media, offline media, it can be your own media, your own media. So it can be your CRM, email pushes, all sorts of things. And then it's the geo or the regional. So it can be an individual country, or it can be a region. It can be a group of countries. It depends on what your preference is. Typically, we model the largest 2 or 3 countries for clients, and then they group the smaller countries together. And then the last one is the platform. So iOS, Android, web, connected TV. Okay, so if we were to model for you the US on iOS, the data that we require looks like this. So it's what we call market level aggregated data. So we only want your installs from today as an aggregate for on iOS in the US market. It's the same with first time purchases, revenue, and so on. It doesn't use any privacy data at all, so it's privacy first. And it's the same with your media spend. So we just need the cost data. So it's the daily cost data from Google, Apple, Facebook, and so on. In order to build your brand model, we require about 1 year's worth of data. So it would be at least 1 year's of historical data for your events and the same for your media. Now, MMM is a data science product, so the more data it has, the more robust the model is. So typically, we model clients with about 2 to 3 years worth of data. We have modeled clients with 9 months worth of data, and their model's still pretty good as well. And of course, the model's always training and sort of building up knowledge. We connect directly to your MMP, so whoever that is. MMM products are MMP agnostic, so it doesn't matter who you're using. We can use the data from whichever MMP that you're using. And then we get the cost data from wherever your cost data is as well. That could be at your MMP, or it could be somewhere else. We can also connect to an internal system that you use, maybe something like Funnel.io, or an internal business intelligence tool that you may use. So it's a pretty flexible system. This would be the same for any provider in the market as well. The third element, just before I move on, to build the model, we need historical data. That can be sent as a batch file. But in order to update the model in real time, it needs real-time API. So we collect the data every day, and then the model updates once a week. The third element is what we call external factors. So these are the weather of the region, the holidays. So if we're building for US, for example, and we've got 3 years worth of historical data for the US, we would include 3 years worth of national holidays for the US, sporting events, pop concerts, and so on. The output of this is MMM insights. I'm going to get a bit more into the insights later on, but at a very high level, the insights that you get will be at the network level. So let's just say Google, at the publisher level, so that would be YouTube, search, Google Display, and so on and so forth, and then at the campaign level. So you would see the insights at your campaign level, making it very actionable. So you'll be able to optimize your campaigns with MMM data. The whole process takes about 4 to 8 weeks to build a model. Your involvement is very little. We do all of the heavy lifting, and that would be the same for any MMM service provider as well. So we just need access to the data. There's no SDK involved. There's no technical resources on your side, and there's no campaign disruption. And it only uses privacy first data as well. So there's no issues around privacy policies. It also means that it's future proof. So when Google Sandbox does eventually come out and there's more signal loss from last touch attribution, this is future proof against those evolving privacy policy changes. So once the model is developed, it starts to understand things like seasonality, holiday events, media, external factors on your business. So here we've got a very sort of top line mock-up of a graph, and what the model would start to understand is things like the external factors on your business as well as your media buying on the business. So for example, if the model noticed that there was an uplift on the second Sunday in February of 5% registrations and 3% of on sales, if it had the prior knowledge that that was the Super Bowl Sunday, it would attribute those sales to Super Bowl. Okay, so it would understand that there was an event that took place, and normally on a Sunday we don't see that type of uplift on sales, and it would make the calculation that with the prior knowledge of the Super Bowl running, then it would attribute it towards that. So it starts to give you those nuances within the data. Okay, what to expect? What's the output that you should get from any MMM supplier? So I've included here a screenshot from our platform because I think it sort of really brings it home for you. It looks like an attribution platform, okay? So it's completely configurable, so whichever metrics you want to see in there. But just to give you an idea here, we're looking at like Google, for example. So Google here, the model is telling the user that Google generated 8.2K incremental installs for this advertiser from whichever time period this is from. Let's just assume it is a week. So last week, Google generated 8.2 incremental installs. The reason why I use the term incremental is probably something I should have mentioned earlier on, is that an MMM model is only looking for incremental benefit. So it's only looking for correlation between your marketing investment and your sales outcomes, okay? And that's essentially at a very high level what incrementality is. So it's going to give you all of these incremental KPIs, your ROAS, your CPAs, whatever it is that you're tracking. And then on top of that, through very advanced machine learning and data science, it will give you optimization strategies. So whatever your optimization strategy is, whether it's a growth strategy, a cost strategy like CPA, ROAS, and so on, the system will give you advice. Spend more on this platform, spend less on this one. It will also give that advice based on your different constraints. So if you spend $1 million a month, it will work to $1 million a month, but it will maximize your efficiency within the market. So it still tell you to spend $1 million a month, but it may advise you on how to spend it more efficiently. The other things just to quickly point out is that any MMM system nowadays should be actionable. So it should be giving you data that you can action in market. MMM has been around for about 30 to 40 years. It's actually been around since about the 60s and 70s. The problem with it up until very recently is that it's been really a data science product. So the output hasn't been very actionable, certainly for performance marketers. Nowadays, with new systems like ours and others in the market, the output that you get should be familiar metrics that you can action tomorrow, next week, next month, and so on. And it means that you can control factors such as channel saturation, so the point of diminishing returns, and incrementality. It will also give you accurate forecasts. So MMM models give you forecasts. They're always forecast in the future. What's going to happen next week, what's going to happen next quarter, and it will give you a read on what the error rate is for that. But just to give you some context, you should be looking at about a 5% error rate over a 2-week forecast and about 7 to 8% over a 4-week forecast. So they can be very, very accurate. And then the scenario planning as well. You can run multiple different investment scenarios. What happens if I cut my budget by half the amount next week? What happens if I double it? If I put all of my money over here, if I reduce the budget over there, it will run these scenarios for you using all of the data science in the background. Okay, so I did promise Taylor Swift. So here she is. Okay, so we work for a very large ride-sharing business in North America, so we build their models. And we noticed, or the model noticed, some uplift during 2023, last year. And what we found was, so this is a screenshot from one of the charts on our system. This is what we call the influence chart. So you can see on the top right corner, this is first-time conversions. These are all of the things that influence their first-time conversions across this period of time, which is the whole of last year. So it's different things like Google, TV advertising is in there. There are different types of partnerships and so on. And then right at the bottom, there's a pink sliver just down there. That is Taylor Swift, okay? So Taylor Swift, or the model, was picking up on something that was unusual, okay? So we went to the client and we said, every now and then, about 2 or 3 times a week, we're seeing these peaks happening. Do you have any idea what that is? And they suggested that it could be Taylor Swift. So we then went online, found out all of the Taylor Swift tour dates, the number of tickets that she sold at those tour dates. We put that into the model, and the model was able to attribute towards Taylor Swift. Now, the fact is that Taylor Swift actually toured 54 times last year in North America. So there was enough statistical significance for the model to say, well, this doesn't normally happen on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. This must be the sort of Swift effect, okay? So it was able to attribute an external event like Taylor Swift to their first-time conversions, to their revenue, and so on. So if we break that down a bit more, as you roll over this chart within our platform, it gives you an idea of sort of percentages and volumes and so on. And you can see there that Taylor Swift actually had about a 3% influence on their sales. So it's significant. Okay, and that was just in June as well. So this was happening over a 6-month period. As soon as she stopped touring, that was it. There wasn't a lift there anymore from her. So it's given the marketeer an enriched set of data, which means that they can use this strategically going forward. Now, you can't influence Taylor Swift touring, but you can certainly understand the impact on your business. So then you can start to maybe strategically pull some levers that you didn't have before, maybe change creative, maybe stop advertising on certain channels and increase it on others, where there's going to be more Swift audience members. On our platform, you can click on each one of these different media sources and influences. And if you just click down, so it's just Taylor Swift, this is what Taylor Swift looks like over that period of time. She toured 54 times in all of these different states and cities. There was over 3% lift. You can see it's a fairly significant month by month. And more importantly, this client's MMP attributed these sales to Google and Apple, okay? It was singular, by the way, their MMP. That isn't incorrect, Google and Apple were the last touch point, but they were not the influence on these tens of thousands of sales. Okay, so, and as you can see, it's a bit cheesy, but this looks very familiar. It's the shape of an iceberg. So as I said, it is factually correct that Google and Apple were the last touch point, but it was Taylor Swift that really influenced these sales. So just to summarize here. So firstly, MMM goes beyond the final touch point. So it transcends traditional last touch measurement by measuring the influences and the nuances of what really drives sales. Okay, it gives you a holistic media measurement. So it's able to measure your offline media, your external factors, as well as your paid for media as well. It can give you the impact of external factors such as Taylor Swift, weather, sporting events, and so on. School holidays often come up as well in our models. And it means that you've got more enriched data to give you a strategic advantage in the market to improve results. The other thing that's worth just mentioning is that it's fairly easy to implement. There's a bit of a myth around MMM that, oh, it's quite a heavy lift and we need loads of data. You don't. You saw the data that's on there. The MMM service provider does the heavy lifting. We just need access to the data. And it's future-proof. So no matter what happens in the future, and they will evolve, with Google Sandbox coming, new evolving data privacy policies will always be around. This doesn't use any data that's affected by those. And it gives you a view on a complex customer journey, as we saw with Taylor Swift. You know, it gives you that view of your top of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel. What MMM does effectively is it decomposes your sales. So you truly understand what's driving each one of your sales.